speaker for this morning, all the way from Washington, D.C., Mr. Eric Swalwell. Come on up! Congressman Eric Swalwell, excuse me.
So nothing much going on in D.C. these days, is there?
We're back to work.
Back to work. Everybody's back to work. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. We're very happy to have you here, Mr. Congressman.
Thank you for having me back.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I know you had a historic vote that came up, so we're always looking to have you come here, give us an update. You ran some of your campaign here, if I remember correctly.
I did, and I'm very grateful to Otto Katrina, who took me on the road tour across the district during the campaign. I went to the marketing meetings in Castro Valley, Hometown Buffet in Fremont, came here, so saw a good part of the district going through the campaign, and wanted to come back and give an update. And as you know, about 2 weeks ago, we finally, after a 16-day shutdown, voted to reopen government. And for me, being in my first 11 months in Congress, it was a very dark time to be back in Washington. It was not very uplifting. It wasn't why I ran to go to Congress. But there was a group that we had formed in the freshman class back in November of last year. Right after we got elected, we went to Harvard University for orientation. Believe it or not, they do send members of Congress to orientation, which is kind of like college orientation without the bunk beds. But
You mean the kegers are still there?
That's right. My own folks they were more excited that I had gotten into Harvard than getting elected to Congress. But 85 freshman members of Congress went to this orientation, and from this orientation we formed, 30 of us formed a small group. Actually, I was one of the original 4, and we grew it every week. It's 30 now, but it's just freshman members of Congress, about 15 Republicans, 15 Democrats. We call ourselves the United Solutions Caucus. We were meeting once a week all the way up to the shutdown, but when the shutdown happened, I called a meeting in my office and said, if there's ever a time that we need to start working together, it's now. And we met every other day during the shutdown, and we were the largest group in Congress, the largest bipartisan group that was meeting and talking about these issues. And we weren't naive. We knew that we weren't going to ourselves cure the shutdown, but we thought it was important to just talk as a group, take solutions back to our leaders, and also kind of as teenagers do, when you're coming up, you say, never again will I make the mistakes that I'm watching my parents make right now. So we thought it was important to learn from those lessons. And then when the Senate had a plan to reopen government, our group took a vote, and in a bipartisan way, we endorsed the Senate plan with Republicans and Democrats to reopen government. We stood on the House floor and voted together, Republicans and Democrats, for that bipartisan plan. So it gives me hope and optimism, because that flight back and forth is about 3,000 miles. I've racked up 230,000 miles since January, and it takes, I think it takes, something to draw you back there. Knowing that there are Republicans across the aisle who want to work with me does inspire me and motivate me to get myself on that plane every Monday morning.
And I think the key word you brought up there was bipartisan. So there is some collaboration, there is some recognition that we need to work together to find solutions.
And we think it's going to take a bottom-up approach right now. We think there's just too much gridlock at the top that over time we have to keep meeting. Even if we're not, bringing sweeping legislative changes right now, we think that the time we put in will build the foundation for the future.
It's changing the environment, making it acceptable to reach across the aisle.
It needs it, greatly needs it.
Yeah. So you had, other than that, which was kind of forced upon them, but you responded really well. You've had a pretty active first year in Congress, haven't you?
Well, I've tried to do as much as I can coming home to the district. I ran for Congress because I thought the district deserved someone who would be here as often as possible. So I haven't missed a trip home. We formed this caucus. The first bill I introduced was a bipartisan bill, which is called the Main Street Revival Act, which would allow any Main Street area in the district that is in a depressed area to defer their payroll taxes for their first year, so they can spend more money on startup costs, hiring employees, bringing in business around. So we've gotten bipartisan support on that. So I'm working on moving that forward. And then just yesterday, if you don't mind, aware of what's going on right now with Fannie and Freddie indicating they would like to lower some of the loan limits in the area, the conforming loan limits. Right now it's $625,500 in our area, and we know that the median home price in San Ramon is over $700,000. I sent a letter to Acting Director DeMarco. I hope he's not director for long, but that's a separate issue. But I circulated a letter among the Bay Area, my Bay Area colleagues who are just as affected by this, and you can see we've got 10 members of the Bay Area delegation who signed on to this letter asking the director not to lower the conforming loan limits because it would hurt this area greatly. And I do actually, if it's okay, Will, I just want to credit my colleagues because this was a team effort.
And we have copies of this letter that's available, so if you want to take that with you, have it, put it around your office, let people know what the issues are, what issues are coming up in the next session. That's something we're going to talk about as well. But this one, it has a direct effect upon our business and our clients' business.
Sure, and this letter ends with, we urge the director to maintain the current levels of conforming loan limits, reject the QRM requirements that would set the minimum down payment at 30%, which is also would be devastating for this area. And that's Zoe Lofgren, Anna Eshu, Mike Honda, Barbara Lee, Jackie Spear, Mike Thompson, Sam Farr, John Garamendi, and Jerry McNerney. So that's a team effort, and they all actually deserve recognition for that. But that comes out of the relationship that I've had with Otto, as well as NAR. Jerry G, the NAR lobbyist back in Washington, is often in our office briefing me on the issues. Also, CAR has been very active. I went down and swore Don Fought in when he became president of CAR, and Don has been very active in updating me. So it just shows that there's a positive relationship there. The issues come to me from the local level up the way it should, and then we're trying to act as often and effectively as we can legislatively.
So, I mean, is that the key issue that's coming up, the FHFA?
Right, in the housing area, absolutely. There's a couple issues, but we think DeMarco is the problem, and I signed on to a letter when I first got into office. We calling on the president to appoint a permanent director of FHFA. Just yesterday, the president's nominee to be the director, Mel Watt, his nomination was blocked in the Senate. So that's unfortunate, and that's going to set us back, and I think the president is probably going to have to either put someone else up who can get through the Senate, or find a way to kind of get around the gridlock block there in the Senate. But we need a permanent director. It lends too much uncertainty when we don't have a permanent director, and I just don't think DeMarco is a friend of this industry.
He's certainly a friend of Wall Street, though, isn't he?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So is there going to be another vote on Representative Watt, or is that totally blocked now?
Right now, it appears that it's totally blocked. So, they're going to have to. The Senate leader Harry Reid is going to have to either go around that, and he would have to change some of the filibuster rules that they have there, which I don't think he's ready to do yet. So I think we need to just push the president. As much as I'd like to see a colleague of mine in the House, Mel Watt, in that role, I would rather just see a new director to replace DeMarco.
Okay, and it was just 4 votes, huh?
That's right. It was 4 votes short. So.
Okay. All right. Now, you had another piece of legislation that you supported coming out this year, right?
A couple pieces.
Yeah.
We've got one. I'm trying to make the Congress more efficient and use its mobile devices more and video conferencing. So we call that the Mobile Congress bill. Last week, for example, I flew out to Washington, D.C. on Tuesday morning and flew back Wednesday afternoon just to vote. I think that wastes, jet fuel. It wastes, the cost of traveling out there. I think I could have been more effective. And so I'm trying to get Congress to upgrade itself and embrace mobile technology more, so we can spend more time in our district and then be efficient when we're in Washington. So it's a slow place to upgrade. It wasn't until the last century that they even put women's bathrooms on the House floor. So they've got a long way to go.
Well, I think the problem is that BlackBerry is still the phone of choice. Isn't that the problem?
That's right.
Yeah, we have to get that done first.
But for me, using the innovation economy to grow the middle class is my priority. This area, as you know, your clients, many of them are attached to the innovation economy, working in high-tech, high-skilled jobs, advanced manufacturing, going to Silicon Valley or working in health information systems. But the tech economy is really where I see the future going, and I see it as my job to support the tech economy. And I just want to say, I think there's 3 ways you support the innovation economy we have here. You need to have a brain trust of individuals, you need to have access to capital, and third, a risk-taking culture. So it's kind of a 3-legged stool, and I think having a brain trust of individuals means we have the best schools that are preparing our kids with STEM education programs. Pleasanton's the first one in the area to do that. I hope others follow, but that's going to give our students what they need to go into that pipeline for the new economy. Having access to capital, I think, means lowering the corporate income tax rate. We need tax reform in our country. The United States has the highest tax rate in the world, and I think we need to make ourselves more competitive so we have more made-in-America jobs. And third, a risk-taking culture. We need to reform our immigration policies. Right now, too often we bring people from far across the world to educate themselves at our universities or work on H-1B visas here, but then we send them back without no path to entering our workforce. And I'd rather have a way for folks who come here and study here and are going to spend money on expensive homes here, have a pathway to be a citizen here if they are going, especially high-skilled workers. So I think we need to reform our immigration process, for high-skilled workers, a pathway for the undocumented individuals, and also make sure that we remove any serious and violent offenders in a better way than now. So that's a 3-legged stool for me: a brain trust of individuals, access to capital, having a risk-taking cultures. I think immigrants have taken great risks to come to our countries, and 40% of the largest companies in the United States were founded by immigrants or the children of immigrants. So there is great value there. So those are some of my priorities as we move into the new year.
And I know you were very vocal during the shutdown regarding Livermore Labs and Deal Labs and the job base that's there, because that's critical to the Tri-Valley economy.
That's right. Lawrence Livermore and Sandia Laboratories, I don't have to tell you guys are selling homes to them. They are the largest employer in the 15th Congressional District, about 10,000 employees there. But what the shutdown did was it caused the employees there to be furloughed. It also, again, I think, shook the confidence of people who, for years, have taken a pay cut to go work in a great laboratory and do great things for science and for our national security. But if you're going to pay these folks less than they get paid in the private sector and give them less certainty than they have in the private sector, the nice thing about working in the laboratories has always been, you have job security there. But if you give them less certainty than the private sector and less pay, I'm afraid we're going to have a brain drain, and they're going to leave the area and go to the private sector rather than stick around. So that I'm greatly concerned about that, not just for science, but for what that means for the local economy and the ripples it would cause.
Sure, because there's no lack of jobs. It's a short ride down 680, though it's a long commute.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. So, and iGate, is that part of that whole strategy as far as really growing that kind of brain trust in this area?
Yes, it is. And so what we're trying to do with the laboratories more is have them better tell the story of the work that they're doing there so that we can transfer the technology out to the private sector. The government, I think, has a role to play in the basic science and research that is done to create great things. Our national laboratories have created GPS, for example. That was something that started our national labs. But they can't sell it. They can put the research into it, but the private sector has to sell it. And so having the link between the national labs out to the private sector is very important. So I've got an economic advisory committee, and we have venture capitalists on that committee who are looking at the labs and how we can invest in some of their technologies to get them to the marketplace so that you can create even more jobs. But they're doing many exciting things. They're working with iGate, and I expect to see, and there's, just as an update, the lab, Lawrence Livermore Lab has its director, Carney Albright, resigned this week, so they are going to have an acting director, and they'll be bringing in a new director over the next few months. And it's my hope to be a part of that search and make sure that the person who comes in understands that people are okay investing, millions of dollars in scientific research, but they want to see what they are going to get out of it. What is it going to do for our economy? What is it going to do for innovation? So I think telling the story better right now, especially when we're so strapped for cash, we need to explain every dollar that we're investing and how it's going to help people.
Yeah, because basic research really went away from corporate America. I mean, IBM closed their labs 25 years ago. Bell Labs closed down. There's really no skunk works within corporate America because they don't see the return, because they're so short-term focused.
Right, that's right. Now it's incumbent upon our national labs. So one other thing in the real estate arena, flood insurance. As you know, there's a short-term extension, and we're hearing right now about very high premiums. And so I'm going to be, taking a look at that. But it's my hope in the Congress, and I've been there for about a year now, so maybe I'm just a little too optimistic, but it is my hope. We have to start thinking big again. We can't do 1 year, 2 year flood insurance programs. We need to do 5 to 7. We can't do 1 to 2 year transportation projects. We have to go back to doing 5 to 7. The private sector, when they
How about 3-month fiscal bills?
Right. No, that's. When I was the president of my elementary school in 5th grade, we had a longer budget than I've been a part of in the Congress right now. So we have to start thinking big again, and we shouldn't see it as a bad thing to do things comprehensively. And so that is my hope. I want to just say something else, and I'll wade right into or run right into the fire here. You haven't asked, you're very nice not to. The Affordable Care Act and its issues and website. I see it, it's my responsibility. I was not there when it was voted on, but it's there now, and it's causing a lot of issues, and I see it as my responsibility to work to fix it anywhere that we can. I think it's been voted by Congress, signed into law by President, upheld by the Supreme Court. We have to now make it work. And so on the website,
I have a resume here of a web developer.
Yeah, there you go.
Otto said not to bring it up.
No, it's my job, and I don't want to run away from tough issues. I did a telephone town hall on Monday night. We called about 30,000 households in the district. Right before the town hall, I had dinner with Vice President Biden, and I told him right before I was wrapping, he was going on and on and on. Actually, it was
Joe talks?
I know. It was 8:50, and I was looking at my watch because I had to get back to my office at 9 o'clock to do a 6 p.m. back here at telephone town hall. And I just to kind of end the dinner, I said, Mr. Vice President, I have a town hall in about 10 minutes. Hint, hint. People at home, right? People at home are going to be very concerned about what's going on with the website and the rising premiums. What should I tell them? What can I say? I heard straight from the Vice President. They know, and he said it's absolutely unacceptable what's going on with the website. They have promised by November 30th, they think all of the problems will be solved. I think it's very dangerous to put a date out there. I always think it's better to under-promise and over-deliver rather than over-promise and under-deliver. But they are confident. They've identified what there are real problems. They believe they've identified them, and they believe if they can get these problems fixed, the bulk of the issues with the Affordable Care Act will be fixed. Now, on the issues with premiums, please let me know. I mean it. Let me know. Let my office know if your plan has been changed or if your premiums are going up. I can't promise that I can lower the premium, but what I want to know is I want to look at this to see if there's a pattern, and I want to see what we can do to make fixes. But the only way I can do that is if you tell me. And my staff, we have all read the manual. That was a requirement for everyone on our staff, and so I don't want to just defend the Affordable Care Act. That it has many problems that need to be fixed. I want to hear about personal issues, look under the hood, see what we can do to fix it. So let me know. You can contact me. My office is just right here on Hop Yard at 5075 Hop Yard.
Yep, right across the street.
I'm on Facebook, Congressman Eric Swalwell. I write all of my own tweets. My staff tries to change my password every week. I'm on Twitter, @Rep Swalwell, REPSWALWELL. But we've got to get this damn website fixed. We've got to make this work for people. We promised affordable quality health care, and I'm determined to find as many of the problems as possible and offer solutions. to get it working. And I can't do that without you telling me, so please be frank.
All right. What about 2014? New session of Congress coming in. You mentioned some of the areas, but I mean, immigration reform you mentioned. That's supposed to be, the legislative push for the new session of Congress. What else is on the agenda that you see that's really going to have an effect on us?
So I would look out for comprehensive tax reform. They are the leaders in the House and the Senate in a bipartisan way are going through the tax code, looking at ways to make us more competitive. Comprehensive immigration reform as we go into 2014. There was a big news this week in the House in that Congressman Jeff Denham, who is a Republican, he's my neighbor, he has Tracy in the Central Valley. He was the first Republican to sign on to what was passed in the Senate. The Senate passed with nearly 70 votes in a bipartisan way an immigration reform bill, and there hasn't been able to be a Republican in the House yet. Jeff Denham was the first one. Now 3 others have followed, and so now we think we may actually be able to get some movement there. And as I mentioned earlier, I think we need an immigration bill that keeps our borders safe. As a prosecutor for 7 years, I was very frustrated the number of times I could find people who had committed crimes, had been removed, came back, been removed, came back. That was very frustrating. Or people who we knew were undocumented, but we weren't removing them, even though they had committed violent crimes. So we have to reform the removal system, get rid of the serious and violent individuals. Make sure that we reform the family visa and high-skilled visa system to make sure that, if we educate people here or have people here on H-1B visas, we can keep them here. And then I think, frankly, the 11.5 million undocumented individuals who have been here, I don't think we're going to be able to just single-handedly remove them. I think they came here for many of the same reasons our ancestors came here, which was to make lives better for themselves and their families. So if they're not criminals, if they want to get in line behind the people who have been in line legally and they want to pay a fee, I think we put them on that roadmap to citizenship. And I think that we can do that now that we have Republicans in the House who are coming forward to do it. I think we owe it to clean up this mess that is our immigration system right now.
California just passed some legislation with the driver's license and also the education act.
Right. I think it is far better to identify and know who the people are in your state or in your country than not. And right now, 11.5 million undocumented, that's an estimate based on border crossings and census data, but we
probably much higher.
We don't really truly know, and I think that's why we want to know who is in our country, and that's one of the major reasons for having reform.
So immigration, you're looking at some of those real estate issues with the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the GSEs on that. You mentioned tax reform. Obviously, the mortgage interest deduction is, as they said, everything's on the table. So, what are some of the feelings in Congress about the mortgage interest deduction, since there's only about 4 or 5 states where it really has an effect, where the bulk of the deductions are?
Right. With tax reform right now, every tax expenditure has been put on the table, whether it's mortgage interest deduction, whether it's tax credits or tax expenditures you can make for giving to a charity, whether it's carried interest. There are a number of different tax schemes that are on the table. I know the value of the mortgage interest deduction. My parents were able to buy, the only reason they were able to buy their first home after being renters for the first 15 years of my life, and forcing me to, I went to 6 different elementary schools, moving around because my parents couldn't afford to live in different areas. I know the value of home ownership, and it meant for me stability, that I could go to the same school, and I know that the only reason they were able to do that was because of the mortgage interest deduction. So I know that's the roadmap, that's the pathway, the bridge to home ownership in the Bay Area, and so for me, the mortgage interest deduction is not on the table as far as what we can touch.
So we've got time for some questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll bring the microphones over to you. Please stand up.
Brad.
Hello. First, thank you very much for not only what you represent for us in Congress, but the way that you do it. I read all your emails and I see what you're trying to do, and it's marvelous. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looking ahead to 2014, my understanding is your main opponent is raising quite a bit of money. Other than money that we can give you, what else will you need in 2014 to defeat this particular person?
Thank you, Brad. And you know, a lot of my friends have asked me, you know, can't you find another job for your opponent? Can't folks help her run for something else?
Isn't that what appointments are for?
And the truth is, Brad and Will, a lot of people came to me when I was running and tried to push me out of the race. One of the leaders in the party told me that there's a ladder for these sorts of positions and you're not even the bottom rung. So I'm not going to, you know, try and push her in any way, force her out, find another position. I think she has every right in the world to run. It's a democracy. It's what makes me better, knowing that I have, you know, someone behind me chasing me for this position. But that doesn't mean we can't run harder and work harder, and that's what we're going to do. And you're right, raising money helps. We have been able to, you know, continue to use the grassroots fundraising effort that we used last time. We've been knocking on doors since June of this year for an election that's going to be a primary election next June. So we hit 100,000 doors last time. We're going to beat that this time. But at the end of the day, I think just offering voters how the new energy that I promised last election, how that's working for them, I think that's how we, you know, stand, you know, and celebrate a victory in November. If we can do that, we will win. I'm confident of it, but I do appreciate you asking and your support.
All right.
Congressman, I'm a
Phil,
studier.
right?
Yes, Phil. Good to see you again, sir. I've been studying international relations and terrorism since I was in college. It's kind of a passion of mine. And I strongly believe that a 9/11 event in the United States, it's not an if, it's a when. And I'm very concerned that what Snowden has done to our national security is maybe, well, it's horrific and permanent, perhaps. And I'm concerned also that Congress may now take steps to hinder what our terrorism experts in our country are doing to prevent that kind of event. How do we prevent that, and what's your position on avoiding a situation where we're going to hinder the NSA from finding these terrorists in our country?
That's a great question, Phil. Every year, a couple buddies and I, for the last 12 years, we've had this tradition right around November where we predict who we believe Time Magazine's Person of the Year will be. And it's not a person, it's not necessarily a person that you like or is inspiring, it's just a person who's had the greatest impact on world affairs in that year. For example, Hitler was Person of the Year just because of, not because he was upstanding, but because of the impact he had back in the 30s. My prediction to this group, my group of friends, I sent the email yesterday to try and get the jump on everyone else. I think it's going to be Edward Snowden, because Edward Snowden, what he has revealed, and my beliefs on Edward Snowden is he broke the law. I don't see this guy as a hero. But what he has revealed and what he has shown, he's basically, you know, lifted up the curtains and shined a light on the sausage factory. You know, for you know, hundreds of years, Americans were happy to just have an intelligence service that you know, does what it has to do to keep Americans safe. But now we are starting to see kind of behind the curtain what goes on in the intelligence service, and it forces us to ask tough questions about, is that something we want our country to be doing? I can tell you, I don't think our country needs to be listening to Chancellor Merkel's cell phone calls in Germany. Germany is an ally of ours. I think it's unfortunate that we are listening in on her phone calls. And people will say, well, they're listening in on our phone calls. I just think the average American, if you walk around, you do kind of what Jay Leno does with his jaywalking, and you ask them, do you think we should be listening to the British Prime Minister's phone calls? They would probably say no, and I think that's for good reason. But I think they do want us, for countries that are not our allies, for countries where there is terrorism, for countries that have been hotbeds for training and recruiting those who want to do harm to us, they would want us to have a forceful, robust intelligence service that is looking at what folks there are doing. If people in that country are communicating with somebody in the United States, we want to know about the person in the United States. And I think we have to continue to do that. But what we cannot do, what I think we have to be very careful about, is this collection of 2 billion phone records a day, which the NSA was doing. 2 billion domestic phone records a day. Your phone records, my mom's phone records, my phone records, 2 billion records a day. I think that is going too far. I would rather have them spend a little more time and even a little more money to be more targeted than to just cast that wide of a net. I don't think my mom's phone records should be collected unless they can demonstrate that there's a reasonable likelihood she's communicating with a terrorist. So with the technology we have, today, I think we can be more targeted and not sacrifice how important this mission is. I was in Israel back in August, and I went over to Afghanistan 2 weeks later. I know that in that region, in the Middle East and along the Arabian Peninsula, there are still people who want to do great harm to the United States. But I think we hinder our ability to gather that intelligence when we're listening in on the phone call of our ally. It's kind of weird. It's kind of like it makes the United States look like that, jealous, boyfriend who is like, every time his girlfriend, takes a call or steps out of the room, he's like, peeking at her text messages. Or when I was a prosecutor, I would prosecute cases like this of stalkers or domestic violence cases, and you'd always hear about the boyfriend who, would be like reading all of their messages or didn't trust them, and like, why would we treat an ally like that? Is how I see it, and that, as I said, hinders our ability to do the real work against the real enemies that we have.
Time for about 1 or 2 more questions. You have a question?
Over here.
All right.
Hello, Congressman.
Good morning.
Thanks for all your work. It must be tough working back there. It must be very.
It's all right. I signed up for it.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Thank you. The HARP-3 program, I sent you an email last week on it. Any kind of update? What's the challenges? I had a lot of clients who are just going to be dying next year with balloon payments, and the HARP-3 could bail them out.
Yeah, we are working on HARP, and Josh, who's with my office, is here, and Josh helps out, and also Jake in our office helps with HARP. The frustrating part about HARP is how few people actually can qualify for it, and looking at ways to expand it is what I'm interested in. But give our office a call if you have any folks, and we try very hard to find folks who can qualify, and even knocking at the doors as I'm back out there doing, this issue comes up, but I always kind of give them as my close, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. And this is the #1 issue that comes up is it's around HARP issues and mortgage payments that they're just not able to make or they're being gouged on. But right now, as you know, the scope of HARP is not where we would like it to be, but we are looking at legislation in the House to change that. But call us 460-5100, that's the 925 one, and then 370-3322, and we will leave information on how to contact us, 510-370-3322 for our Hayward office. But I would be interested to hear just, if you think there are clients who could qualify and what we could do to help.
One more question. Do we have one more question? No?
No.
All right. Well, we do have copies of the letter that the Congressman referred to, so if you'd like to pick up a copy of those, they'll be at the front table on the way out. And Congressman, I'd like to thank you so much for coming out and giving us an update. You've been supportive of me, and we'll continue to support you on that.
Now, do we find value in Congressman Swalwell being in the House this morning? Look at that. Now, yeah, that's why Fridays, this is the place to be. Okay? They're not always as great as Congressman Swalwell, but we do our best.